You see, the gravity of just God being there and using little people like me, little people like us, can be overwhelming. And yet, God gives us some insight. The insight is very unique because it's bizarre. And it is found in Matthew chapter 4, verse 19. We see Matthew chapter 4, verse 19. This is what Jesus says. And he says to them, that's his disciples, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." Now that's a weird verse, isn't it? How many of you guys are like, I'm a fisherman and I like to catch men? It's a little creepy. But realistically, we see it and we go, what does this mean? And Jesus calls us and he gives us this clue of, hey, we need to be fishers of men. What is fly fishing? This is a really crazy one. Fly fishing is an amazing, amazing event because fly fishing is a type of fishing where you go after one fish. You might have somebody that you're thinking of right now in your family. And it's scary. In fact, it's one of those moments that can actually grab us. And this is one of the hard things about fly fishing because fly fishing is done in the wild. Fly fishing is done where danger is, where rejection happens. It's something that we sit there and go, I want to reach that person. I want to catch that fish for the Lord. And we can be struck with fear. Now, I'm going to tell us a few things about fly fishing because it is the most normal way of direct fishing. And that is, even as we are fishing in the wild, we need to treat it as we're fishing in the wild. Now, what does that mean? If you are going after somebody that you know needs the Lord, they're probably wild. Which means they have things in their lives that are probably not exactly going well for them. But you know what your job is in fishing is? It isn't to change the structure of the river. It is to catch a fish. When we go out and we seek to tell someone about the Lord, our goal is not to fix the person, but to catch the person. Shore fishing, which is what most of us call and sit there and say, that is what I do. You know what shore fishing is? You sit on the shore, you have a cooler of stuff, and you throw your line. You bring your family. You hang out with them. You enjoy them. So Jesus changes tactics. And Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" In verse 48. And Jesus answered, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Now, why is that a change in tactics? It's often one of the greatest things that we underestimate for who we are as believers. Oftentimes, we want to be very direct and say, yes, I need to tell you, I need to know the Romans road, and every single time that you're with me, that you're not a believer, I'm going to go over the Romans road. And you're like, I've been through the Romans road with you 15 times. And Jesus is like, nope, I saw you under the fig tree. Something happened under the fig tree. You see, what happened is Jesus saw him for who he is. This is often the most effective way of fishing. It is living our lives for the Lord. It is being there for him. It is going and understanding and hanging out with somebody even when they're broken. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10, this is what Paul writes. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10, it says, "But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And the grace towards me was not in vain. On contrary, I worked harder than any of them, though it was not me, but the grace of God that was in me." I love this because this is often where we have to be, is in that moment where we sit there and say, I need grace. It's amazing to give grace, but it's also amazing to see what Jesus has done here. Most of us at this moment can look at this and say, what did Jesus see Nathanael do under the tree? Before Peter called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. It's fun because we can ask that question, and that is, what did he see him doing? Was he sinning at that moment? What was it? But that's actually not the point. The point is very simply this: Jesus saw him. It's the same thing that we have and that Jesus does for you today. He sees you. It's amazing when you see and you are seen by the Lord. The Lord sees you, the Lord loves you, the Lord wants you, even when no one else sees you. This is the moment that Nathanael comes to the Lord. He was hanging out with Jesus. He was hanging out with Philip. And all of a sudden, Jesus saw him. And look at Nathanael's answer. That's the one. That's the one that is the Son of God. Jesus is the King of Israel. And Jesus looks at him. And I actually think this is one of the most special ways of ever being caught. Because I always notice that somebody that's caught because they were unloved and Christians loved them and showed the fact that Jesus loves them. Jesus has a special way of responding to him. He looks at this guy that was there. A guy that was sitting there struggling. Jesus saw him. And he repented and said, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And in that moment, Jesus looked at him and said, you ain't seen nothing yet. It is going to get so much better. I want us to think about that moment. Some of us have been saved for a year, 10 years, 5 years, 50 years, I don't know. But the truth is, the day that you came to the Lord was just the beginning. Our lives and what God has done in your lives are amazing. And yet, even there, we still haven't seen anything yet.